Hello everyone. Today I'll be interviewing the person who is currently teaching us the business studies and currently working at a Bukhara Presidential School. So, Mr. Marco Arienti. Mr. Marco, welcome to our interview.
Hello.
Today we'll be basically comparing the traditions, festivals, and the food in Uzbekistan and Italy. Okay. Let's start though. Let's start with the culture and traditions. So, Mr. Marco, what are some of the most important traditions in Italy?
Well, traditions in Italy, they can be found everywhere. We call them Sagre, which is usually a festival that goes for 2 or 3 days. And in these 2 or 3 days, mainly the farmers, they would present their food all over a whole village or even a small town. There are people coming from everywhere and they would eat and drink. And then there would be an exhibition of traditional costumes. That's happening all over Italy. I mean, usually in September and October, sometimes in spring. It depends on the calendar. And you need to know that in the Christian tradition, every day is the day of a different saint. So, and every small town or even every village has got a special saint. And once it's the day of that saint, there will be a celebration. Sometimes the saint is even celebrated 2 or 3 times in a year, so there was always a reason to party. Then, of course, I think most of the people know the Carnival of Venezia, or Venice, very famous in the world. That is probably one of the biggest festivals in the world, but there are also other places where you can find the Carnival. The Carnival is also celebrated in small villages in the east of the country. Yeah, so that's what it is.
Sounds amazing. So, how do Italians typically celebrate special occasions like birthdays or weddings?
I would say very similarly to here. So the family gathers and the friends gather and then they sit together. There is a birthday cake like here, and then there are presents like here. So
what about the weddings? Like we will have a lot of people here in weddings.
Well, in Italy, it was like that in the past, like until the 1960s, 1970s, where you would invite your whole village, which would be 400, 500 people. And I would say that friendship has grown smaller over the years or over the decades. So at the moment, there would be like 40 or 50 people, just the closest friends and the family members celebrating. What is quite peculiar for me, I went to 3 weddings here in Uzbekistan, and I myself had a wedding here in Uzbekistan, my wedding. And it really finishes at like 10 or 10:30 in the evening, and then it's done. Everyone goes home. And in Italy, we would celebrate for 6 or 7 hours, until midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and there would be, just like here, dancing, there would be games and so on, but it takes way longer than that. What is also different in the weddings is that, I think this is only in Europe, so if you marry in church, then your marriage certificate is official. So in Uzbekistan there is a ZAX, the ZAX wedding, and then there is the religious wedding, and that is up to you whether you organize it or not. But in Italy you can marry in church and then it's official. You don't need to marry again at city council.
What role does family play in Italian society?
Well,
comparing to maybe Uzbekistan.
Well, compared to Uzbekistan, it plays a minor role. It used to be similar to here, again up to the 1960s, maybe 1970s, and then people became more individualistic. So at the same time, in the 1960s, 1970s, people had more children than now. So there were families of 5 children or 7 children. 3 children was actually not that much. And then once the children became less, also that boundary or that connection to the family got smaller. I used to grow up like I think all of you here, that my grandparents in Italy, they would always keep an open door, and in summer I was even living there. Yeah, I've lived there until the age of 16 or 17 every year, and that was nice because in the evening hours my cousins would come, my cousins, my aunts, and everyone would come there and sit there until midnight and speak to each other. It was very, very enjoyable, I need to say. But these days it's no longer like that. So people like to stay at home and probably, I don't know, play on their phones or watch Netflix and things like that.
So, how much time do children spend with their parents, like till what age?
Well, I would say until the age of 16, 17, 18, something like that. And then they would go on a holiday with their friends, probably. Yeah. Sometimes it's even longer than that, until the age of 22. Yeah.
Are there any customs or social etiquette rules that are unique to Italy?
What do you mean by that? I mean, something that is admissible in Italy,
Yeah.
and not admissible here. But there are many differences in daily interaction. Yeah. So I'm not sure if that is the question, but basically, I know in Uzbekistan you wouldn't shake hands with a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas in Italy, if you refuse to shake hands, it would be very rude. Yeah, and here it is rude to shake hands. Yeah. So there are these different differences in daily life, but it will take a long time to explain all of them. Generally, life in Europe or in Italy is very different from here. Very different.
Once they want to greet with people, they will shake their hands, right?
Yes, you would shake hands, and you would shake hands, and you have to in Italy. Yes, and I think like here you have this ecce and appa, and in Italian language there is a similar way to actually say that, but it's in the verb and not in the noun. But you have to do that. Yeah.
So, how do Italians typically celebrate New Year and Christmas?
Well, Christmas is the family coming together on the 25th of December. That's basically the birth of Jesus. And on the 24th in Austria and some other countries in Europe, in Italy it's on the 25th. So the family comes together, and there would be good food, and then there would be presents. Quite a lot of presents.
All the members of the family gather into one home and
Yes,
celebrate.
to one home.
What about the New Year?
Well, New Year is celebrated just like here.
Like here?
Yeah, exactly.
Waiting till the 12th and
Yeah, with fireworks and food and drinks and yes, something like that.
Okay, let's move on to my favorite part, food and cuisine.
Okay.
So, what are the key elements of Italian cuisine?
Key elements.
Yeah, key elements.
Well, we eat differently in the sense that in a traditional Italian meal there would be, they call it pasti. Yeah? So basically you would start with pasta or with rice, so something that has carbohydrates, and then afterwards, in a second go, you would get either meat or fish. And as you're asking about traditional ingredients, I mean, there is a lot, but most people know pasta and pizza, but that is mainly, pasta is everywhere, but pizza is mainly in the south of Italy. And in the north you would have more rice. And then there's a lot of cheese, a lot of sausages. I think you know that Christians, they are allowed to eat pork. So we have a great variety of sausages that you don't find here simply because of religious aspects. And of course we have the same vegetables and the same fruits as here, and we combine them everywhere and every time we can.
Okay, how do traditional meals in Italy usually look in terms of structure and timing? So basically, when do you eat your, for example, breakfast, dinner,
Ah.
and lunch, and
Yeah, that is
how much you eat during those times?
yeah, that is usually a shock to many who come to Italy. So the breakfast is incredibly small. Most Italians they just drink an espresso, which is a very small and strong coffee, and then they call it cornetto, which is in essence a croissant as big as this, or something like it, and that's it. Yeah? And then that usually happens between, well, whenever you get up, at 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning. And I, for example, I really cannot eat anything in the morning. No, it's just too early here for me. And I also just, I have an allergy against coffee, which is quite awful. But it's like that, so I have to drink black tea to wake up. And then a very, very small thing to eat. And then you would eat at 1. And after that, there is a break during the day. And that break could last until 3, could last until 4, and could last even until 5. So between 2 and 4 hours that's when people just rest.
Oh,
Yeah?
no work.
No work. And especially in the south where it's too hot to work. Of course, if you work, let's put it that way, in a supermarket where you have air conditioning, it's a bit different. But when I, as a kid, and even during my youth, I mean, everything would be shut down. At 1, from 1 until 4. Even in Rome, I mean, Rome is a big city with a lot of tourists. Until 4, there was, I mean, nothing. Yeah. So that's the Italian lifestyle, and it changed a little bit. It changed a little bit with a lot of tourists coming in. My cousin, for example, he worked as a dispatcher for a logistics company, and he would have a break between 1 and 3, and then continue to work from 3 to 7 in the evening hours. So the day in Italy is longer.
What do you think about the Uzbekistan and their timing of food? Like, basically, you've been working here since
Yeah, I
2022.
mean, in Italy we don't eat as much meat. Yeah, so the Uzbek cuisine is very much focused on meat. The meat in Uzbekistan is of extreme high quality, I need to say, if I compare it to Europe in general and also to Italy, especially beef.
Yeah.
I mean, that quality of meat I have not seen in many years in Europe. And if you buy it, it would be very expensive. But here it's more like a daily piece of food that you eat. A daily dish.
So in Italy, how people consider the food? So, for example, is it just? Do you consider it is just eating and?
No. It's usually an event. So depending on how you work and where you work, you would focus on gathering at least your spouse with you and eat together. And if you have children, you would focus on getting the children together. So you would always try to eat as a family, and not just 10 minutes and then be done with it, but it takes like half an hour or 45 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not just, it's a cultural happening. It's not something just to get something into your stomach.
Yeah.
And during the day, I mean, if you are on a holiday, not all people can afford it, but usually during the day, then there would be aperitivo, which is basically something little to drink and to eat before lunch. Then lunch would be at 8 in the evening or 9 in the evening, and then it would go on and on. So we spend quite a lot of time eating all sorts of dishes.
Good. Sounds exciting, actually. So let's now talk about clothing and fashion in Italy. So how has traditional Italian clothing evolved over time?
So there are traditional clothes, just like in Uzbekistan there are traditional clothes. But I think the amount of people who actually wear them is similar to here. So here in Bukhara, I can still see people who wear that long coat. I don't know its name.
It's called Japan.
Japan. Yeah. And in Italy, there would be people who wear something like that. But it's it's very rare. It has become very rare, and these days people would dress like me, and if they work in a more formal circumstances, they would wear a suit and a tie. And for ladies, of course, there are elegant clothes as well. So yeah, traditional clothes, they are worn on those special days, yeah, for the Sagre, and people would have those clothes at home. They use them once or twice a year. I would say Italy is the center of modern, elegant clothes, because I think you all know Gucci and Prada and Armani, and all of them, or most of them, are from Italy, from Milano, the fashion city of the world. Usually these brands are of extreme high quality, and also the shape of the clothes is very, very elegant, but also very expensive. I think there will be another question about that.
Yeah, we have already talked about it. What are some traditional Italian fabrics or clothes styles that are still popular today?
Well, it's not that they're still popular, they have changed.
They have changed, but some parts, yeah.
Yeah, so what we use is a lot of, it's called lana pettinata, and lana is wool, and pettinata means basically comb the wool. So it's a very, very thin fabric, but it is very, very warm. So that you would use in winter for elegant clothing, and you could also use a similar fabric for your jackets and for your sweaters. Yeah, I've never seen it in Uzbekistan. There is only imported. There's one shop in Tashkent where I saw it, and I asked about it. I said we just don't use it, but it's actually breathable, so it's quite healthy to wear it. And it's not synthetic.
Yeah. But I guess in Italy it's not that cold compared to Uzbekistan during winter time.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. In the mountains it's extremely cold.
Extremely cold.
In the north we have a lot of mountains, and then if you look at the shape of Italy, you would have that kind of, well, it's not a shoe, yeah, it's a boot that goes down into Sicily. And in the middle of the boot there are very high mountains, like 2,000-3,000 meters high, and there it snows, and the snow stays for months, so it is cold. Yeah, in the north especially, it's quite cold. It doesn't get as hot as here.
Oh yeah, somewhere.
It doesn't get, because the sea, there's the sea, and
the sea.
Yeah. It wouldn't get it.
So last question about music and art.
Mm-hmm.
So how has traditional Italian music influenced the country's culture and identity?
Well, traditional music, for that I would go back to the 1800s.
Great.
And there were very, very famous composers like Puccini, Rossini, Giuseppe Verdi, and they composed classical music, opera music. Yeah. There was opera music before, Mascagni from Sicily, and before that there was also classical music. So it depends at which decade you actually look, or which century you look at. And after that, just like in the whole of Europe, after the 1950s, rock music evolved. And we have got some good rock musicians in Italy, but none of them actually made it to international fame. They stayed within Italy, and they were highly admired by the Italians, but not so much known outside Italy. Because most of them, they refuse to sing in English, and English is like, what I would say, language number one in the world, but it's a language that most people understand. But they kept it to themselves. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm.
So that's all actually.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming. Basically, we have learned a lot about traditions in Italy, and we have compared them with Uzbekistan.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for coming, and we'll see you guys in next videos. Thank you for watching.
Thank you very much.